the table, but that just has to do with some rounding. You get the 0.9618. Both those answers are acceptable answers. So let's do this example just using our calculator and basically what I would expect on a quiz or an exam. So I have the golf scores for a school team are normally distributed with a mean of 68 and a standard deviation of 3. Okay, find the probability that a golfer scored between 66 and 70. Okay, so I'm looking at that probability. I'm going to draw it real quickly. I know my mean is 68. Here I have 66. Here I have 70. I'm looking at the area in between. I'm going to use the calculator. So once again, I'm going to have normal CDF. I start with 66. I go to 70. My mean was 68. Standard deviation 3. And on my calculator, I should come up with 0.4950. So the probability that a golfer scored between 66 and 70 is about 49.5% or 0.495. What happens when I ask you to actually find the 80th percentile? So in this particular case, you're dealing with this distribution. 68 is the mean, and I want to know where the 80th percentile was. What score was the 80th percentile? So I have some value here, and that probability is 0.80. If you can kind of remember what we did with the uniform distribution, to remember when we found percentiles, we had the area, we just needed to find that cutoff. We generally use the letter K here, so I'm going to switch this to K so we don't get the X and that X confused. So what I have here is the probability that X is less than K equals 0.80. Now I don't just have a formula that I can throw in for that area like I did with the uniform. So what I'm going to have to do is either find a way to do this on my calculator or use my actual table. So when we look at our table here, remember that what I was given is the actual area. The area happens to be inside this table. These are my z-scores, and these are my second decimals of my z-scores. This is all my area. So I need to look through this table and I need to see if I can find the closest number to that 0.80, because that happens to be my area, which is going to be this 0.7995. Now you're most likely not going to come up with an exact number. That's the closest thing we have to the 0.80. So when I look at that, I have 0.8, and then I'm going to have 4 here. So this number right here is going to be 0.84. That's a z-score. That's not an x. So what happens here is I know that my z is going to be 0.84. I need to know what that is in terms of golf scores. Do you remember our formula that we used before at the beginning of Chapter 6? I had my z value equals x minus mu divided by standard deviation. So if I know that I have 0.84, I can find x with my mean of 68, standard deviation of 3. I'm going to take and multiply both sides by 3. And I have 2.552, equals x minus 68. Add 68, and I get 70.52 is my x. So the actual value that's the 80th percentile is 70.52. In the words of this particular problem, you can't have a golf score of 70.52. So we would say it's about 70 or 71. On my calculator, I can also come up with this information. Once again, I'm still going to pick that second vars. So remember, you want to go to second vars. And this time it's going to be number 3. You're going to want to use that inverse norm. And the inverse norm, the key here is it's always area to the left. If you have the area to the right, you need to find the area to the left. In this case, when that is a percentile, that's my area to the left. So all I had to do in this problem was to write the 0.80, my percentile. My mean was 68, and my standard deviation was 3. And on your calculator, you should come up with the same 70.5 2. It's probably a little bit faster. It's not a bad idea to still draw it. You know 80th percentile is going to end up somewhere over here, so you would expect an answer like what you end up with. Without drawing it, you may plug something into your calculator incorrectly, come up with an answer, and you really have no idea if it's right or wrong. I'm going to stop this lesson right now, even though I have a couple more examples to go over. I think I'll go over those on Monday. Hopefully we'll have class on Monday, and we'll go over those so that we can kind of do a little bit with the calculator and the table and application problems all together before we go into the central limit theorem. Your quiz on Wednesday is going to cover chapter 6 only, not 6 and 7, which is what I planned. And the homework is on WebAssign right now, so you could start working on that. Thanks, and stay safe this weekend. Hopefully the storm will stay east.